Just a warning, this video may come off as rude or too critical, but I simply need to express my gripes with how Danny's World has been going downhill lately. If you're confused, I will be elaborating on a few specific things, these being the lack of meaningful updates, the twisted cap increase from 6 to 8, and the rare odds, plus potentially a few other things like bugs and such. To start out simple, the lack of meaningful updates. This might be the thing that I can shrug off the most, simply because the developers have been promising that they are working on things behind the scenes and there's stuff coming soon, but my main issue is that there's nothing to show for it at the moment. A few days ago, we got our first tune of the week, which is a new trend the developers have decided they'll do to update pre-existing tunes and twisteds that feel outdated. And while I think this is a good feature that will benefit the game in the future, they told us that we are not promised a tune of the week every week, and on top of that we have absolutely no clues as to what updates are coming soon, or even when the next update releases that is not just slight twisted tweaks and skins. In the Sprout Week update, the only change we got to gameplay was that Twisted Sprout follows Twisted Cosmo and he stops to look at Sprout posters sometimes. And while these are definitely cool additions, they just feel unimpactful to the game in the context of an entire update with nothing else released beside it, aside from just 2 skins for a tune that already had 8 to begin with. And this does extend past the Sprout Week update. I would like to discuss the Easter event as well, the second one to be specific. While we did get some fun gameplay changes, those being Twisted Coco and Bassie's reworks along with Spring Fever floors, it was heavily focused on skins, which I know a ton of people were unhappy about, especially with the state Twisted Bassie was in during the update's release. If you're unaware, she would make your receiving and CPU spike whenever she used her long range attack, and everyone in the server was impacted by this whenever she did it, no matter where they were. This leads me to my next point of the developers being more focused on cosmetics than impactful bugs and overall game balancing. As a competitive Danny's World player with a high floor of 404 and a highest solo floor of 96, I think I can speak on how horrible this game's balancing truly is, and just generally their lack of fixing bugs. The aforementioned Bassie Vine bug stayed in the game for an entire week of the Easter event's release, and even then, on low performance devices, her spikes still cause frame drops, even on my computer that is relatively strong and able to handle most tasks completely fine. The lack of bugs goes so much more beyond Bassie's vines being poorly optimized. Every game has its bugs, but the Danny's World developers drag their feet when fixing bugs, and that is an understatement. There have been a few particular bugs I can list that have been long-term problems and run enders, these being commonly known as the stealth and skill check bug. If you're unaware, the skill check bug is a bug where when you try to get off of a circle machine, you can immediately fail a skill check that pops up at the last second, failing you twice. This bug, while seemingly not that harmful, is especially bad on Dial's floor and in solos when Twisteds are not being distracted. I've been put in bad spots in solos and had teammates killed by this bug on Dial floor various times, and yet this bug still persists in the game from the moment Circle Machines released, all the way to present day. On top of this, we have the stealth bug. The stealth bug is a bug where Twisteds would completely ignore stealth if they hit someone and spotted them immediately after. This does sound like a niche bug until you realize that this commonly kills people who are stuck in bad situations when they'd otherwise have lived if stealth worked properly. For example, an Astro can get hit to Pebble, then spotted by him immediately after again, and then try to put the Twisted on a distractor tune, let's say just like Louie. And despite the lower stealth being directly in line of sight, Twisted Pebble would persist on the tune he hit. This bug persisted from the game's release all the way up until patch 0.15.1, which was released on January 30th of 2026. This was a well-known bug in the community and reported various times, and it was only fixed on accident when the Twisted's pathing and overall AI was updated. To add to the pile of bugs, I can also throw in this recent bug that has occurred as of the Squirm update, or patch 16.1, or 0.16.1. There's a bug with Twisted Squirm where he cuts line of sight. I know a lot of people have had issues with this bug simply because of like solar kiting with Bobbette and Louie, or like Bobbette and Eclipse. A lot of people have this issue where Squirm will cut line of sight and all the Twisteds will go on Bobbette, despite the fact that she has Diary and she should be higher stealth. I've seen this happen a lot. I have my own clips of this happening with like R&D and stuff, and it's a very frustrating bug that I think should also be addressed. And the fact that they just haven't fixed this is frustrating since it's been in the game for 2 months as of me recording this. If there's any update to discuss about releasing bugs and unwanted changes, it is 0.15.1. This update in particular added 3 optimized tunes in Twisteds, which officially made every single tune in the game optimized. This led to the developers to increase the Twisted cap to 8, as it now would not make the game lag due to poorly optimized Twisteds, but also led to the buff of the Eiger Leak event and the removal of double mains. Ironically, the release of this update was potentially the least optimized update we have ever received, and it's hard to believe the game even has playtesters with the state this update was released in. Upon release, the Twisted AI was completely bugged and just straight up not functional. If a tune of lower stealth took a Twisted, they'd all freeze in place or slow down, which made the game nearly unplayable. It is genuinely insane that the Danny's World developers did not catch how dysfunctional their Twisteds were before the update released, especially since they were testing a new AI with them. Thankfully, they did patch this a few hours after release, which is the most hustle Danny's World devs have ever shown when it comes to patching bugs, although this did come with some unwanted side effects. The Twisted AI changes minimized hitboxes of all the Twisteds, which is a good thing until you realize that Twisted's Pebble pathing was completely changed. The way people commonly deal with Twisted Pebble is taking him alone going around an island. This would make him slower and easier to manage, letting extractors do machines while the threat is dealt with. This update made his hitbox smaller, meaning he did not get caught on islands whatsoever. And while you can argue this is simply how he should be, this was not fair for anyone. You could argue he shouldn't be distracted this way, but it's beyond distracting him, as normal Toons couldn't lose him anymore due to his high speed and how quickly he would wrap around islands. If you were slower than Pebble, you couldn't escape him. Only 4-star movement speeds could effectively escape Pebble without escape items, and that is being generous, which is absolutely insane to think about. It took the developers 12 days to patch this, leaving the game in a near unplayable state for nearly 2 weeks. There's also still bugs that persist to this day that originated from this update in particular, this being a bug where if a Twisted switches aggro on someone as you cut a corner, they simply just lose aggro and their attention span is cut way shorter than it's supposed to be. And even to this day, Twisteds still often pause if they switch aggro too much, making them clunky to work with and hard to read. Not only did this update introduce these buggy Twisteds, but it also made various unasked for changes to things the community did not ask for. These being the aforementioned Iker Leak buff and the removal of double mains. If you are unaware of what a double main is, it is when you have 2 duplicates of a main on one floor. No, it is not just 2 mains on one floor. The logic of this bug, although it's more of an oversight, is that when you roll 6 mains on your floor, there's only 5 to go around, so your 6th main is a duplicate of one of the 5 mains on the floor. This bug was a very rare encounter and only started to rarely appear past floor 100 generally, and getting it any earlier would just be a miracle in itself. This was a beloved oversight by the entire community. Like, committed players loved striving for these floors, and casual players loved watching the more committed players encounter these impossible floors that were just nearly unreachable to any casual player. They were generally floor 200 or higher in most cases. I was one of the committed players in question, and I absolutely adore double mains. They were generally my entire purpose for playing the game, and after the removal in 0.15.1, I was honestly just upset. The game was not unplayable, of course, but it was a big blow to me personally, as I loved encountering these rare floors and sharing them with people who loved seeing them. Nobody wanted this removed, so I just struggled to understand the reasoning behind removing this oversight that was just beloved by the players. Just to add, the Iker Leak buff was also an unneeded addition, and I'm aware most people agree. The screen obstruction for 30 seconds is just downright not an enjoyable addition, especially since they buffed how many there are on every floor, meaning nearly every single doorway is riddled with these things. Not to mention the 5-second 15% slowness for daring to touch one of these things, which is way too punishing for such a common thing. This rework could be fine if they just toned down the size or the amount of the puddles, but I think it's safe to say this was simply not something people wanted, and it does not add to the enjoyment of this game. Circling back to the 8 Twisted cap, this change itself did make the game harder, but at the time it was a manageable change that the players adapted to. It made rares appearing on your floors more common, which was a fun challenge to start. It's still a rare occurrence to get rares plus mains, and that's what made it fun. The real issue creeped up when they introduced potentially the worst update this game has seen, the rare odds buff. If you are unaware, in version 0.16.13, shortly after Squirm's release, the Danny's World developers tweaked the odds of rare and main Twisted spawning on your floor. As you progress, the chances of rolling commons and uncommons would decrease, while the rare and main chances would increase. This change was a good thought by the developers, and many people were interested in this change. There were players discussing how rares do not appear often despite having a lower rarity than mains, so in theory this change could be a good addition to the game, making the higher rarity Twisteds, supposedly the most dangerous, appear the least. The only problem was this update was completely overtuned. The game's balancing has always been centered around the fact that rares were the hardest Twisteds to deal with, therefore they showed up the least. Rares have always had the most unique Twisted gimmicks, and the game balanced this by making them rare occurrences, hence the name. This update absolutely tripled the chances of rares showing up on floors, which proves to be a huge problem when paired with mains. This is a chart showing the Twisted rarity scaling up to floor 15 provided by the Danny's World developers themselves. By floor 15, every Twisted slot has a 13% chance of rolling a rare, and it only keeps increasing as you progress. This is already a ridiculous chance for a dangerous Twisted to show up, seeing as they are the most difficult. Main odds eventually do overtake rares, as we can see by the scaling present here, but this is also a root of the problem. Mains and rares become so much more common past floor 20, and mixing these two dangerous rarities of Twisted more often is a big issue. This wouldn't be as much of an issue if the Twisted cap was not 8. The Twisted cap of 8 means you have 8 chances to roll a rare or main, which makes them get absolutely spammed past floor 20. I will show some footage of the absolute just slop people have been encountering with these odds on relatively early floors. Just for perspective, my highest floor before the rare odd change was 404, and after they were implemented, it is now 124. Barely a fourth of what I made it to. I'm not the only person struggling with this. Ask any player who actively plays this game and makes it to far floors, the highest most of them can say is somewhere in the hundreds. Now, why am I making such a fuss about the game being hard on higher floors? I mean, obviously the game is going to be hard so high up. The problem is we get these nightmare floors before floor 100, which is now recognized as an achievement if you want to 100% the game. The game acknowledges floor 100 as an attainable achievement, something you can strive for and reach. But to put it bluntly, you need to have a fully coordinated team of skilled players to even have a chance of making it that far, and most of the time, even those coordinated teams cannot. This is my issue with the game at its root. Danny's World is not fun anymore. This is just a bit of a rant and a summary on my perspective of the game right now. I've been playing since August of 2024, only 2 months after the game's official release. I've simply just seen it all. I've completed the game on 2 different accounts because of just how much I love this game. I have seen every single double main. I've reached floors that people can only dream of seeing. But sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, I'm not enjoying this game anymore. I don't have fun playing this game. Double mains were my striving factor for going so far, and they're gone. Going to the highest floors possible was one of the most enjoyable things for me, but now it is entirely and solely dictated by RNG. There's nothing I feel I can do to strive further, as the game can just blockade you with impossible floors that frequently appear, and they simply are not fun to play. I do not enjoy dealing with the spam of rare Twisteds on every single floor, my items being stolen or being hit out of the darkness with just no counterplay. It's not fun. I'm making this video to speak on the behalf of the competitive community. Please Quell and your developer team revert this change. I have seen so many committed players leaving this community due to these changes and the overall lack of care for the gameplay. This affects casual players too, who can't even play past floor 25 without being slammed with pebble grabber blackouts. This is not enjoyable for anyone. I wholeheartedly love this game, and I love this community. It's given me my own community and a career, but if I am not enjoying this game anymore, I will need to move on for myself and for my viewers. It is not fun for anyone to watch me play a game I don't even like playing, and I do apologize for the depressing end, but to put it bluntly, I can't word it anywhere else. Before you go, here are some changes I think that will help the game at the very least. Obviously, as I said, nerf or revert this change. My advice is to change the Twisted cap to 6 again, or nerf how quickly rares scale up in the Twisted odds. Add less skins. Although they are fun additions at times, development time should be more focused on enhancing the gameplay and polishing it, rather than cosmetics for tunes that already have enough options. This game is an alpha, and yet more than half of the content released is skins, which is time spent that could be used on more productive things that will make the game better. Other than that, I have nothing to add. Thank you for listening to this rant video, and let me know how you feel about the state of the game in the comments, and maybe just some other suggestions on games I should stream or make videos on that are not Dandy's World, because if you can't tell, I am starting to get tired of this game. And I hope some people might reciprocate with me and understand how I feel. Just please let me know, and I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.